President King, President Pro Tem Bennett, members of council, Carl Schuler with Land Use Review Division. If you would like, I have a very short presentation on some background on the charter, and then we were supposed to have Mr. Alex Brown, but he's had a personal situation, so Mr. Gary Erickson can make the case for consideration and answer any questions if you would like.
Yes, go ahead and do that.
Okay, today you have a reconsideration of your June 24th vote. We've attached all agenda materials. We have updated the resolution just today. Again, the petitioner will make the case. I just want to provide a very short background. Because of a 1993 charter provision, votes on special district debt require a two-thirds supermajority, basically 2/3 of the entire city council, not just those happen to be attending a particular session. And it was put in response, and I wasn't here at the city at the time, but it's really in response to kind of the death spiral scenario that occurred with some districts, taxing districts throughout the state. Colorado Center in the county was one of those. It's now in the city, where you pledge an unrestricted mill levy. Development didn't go as expected, and then the mill levy had to be increased, and then that created less interest in developing in the area, more foreclosures, more people leaving, a devaluation, and then the mill levies would have to technically be increased further, and so it would create essentially a death spiral situation, and that occurred in certain places in the state. At that time, we had very few metropolitan districts. You may recall Metex got in somewhat trouble, although it was not a death spiral situation. And subsequently, the state approved some statutory changes that took care of, to some degree, some of these options, because now, at least in certain debt issuances, you can't pledge an unrestricted mill levy anymore unless you meet certain criteria. And then the city went on to also deal with that issue to some degree in their 2005 process of doing the special district policy and the model service plans for metro districts. And the city put, as part of your policy, additional caps on mill levies that basically don't allow that death spiral to occur anymore. And the debt cannot default in any issues that are endorsed by the city, as long as the property tax is being levied at that cap. Then we subsequently kind of fixed a little potential error or limitation in our model service plans and policy to make sure that you couldn't technically also pledge an unlimited fee. Same thing, where you basically say, well, we'll have a monthly fee and we won't have a tax. So we now have end user debt service fees that are limited by your standard documents. And all of this that occurred in 2006 assumed that there would be requests for debt that exceeded the cap, basically the 10, where we didn't have at least 10% of the assessed valuation to support that debt. So that was your policy at the time. But because the charter was the charter, those provisions are in the documents, they're in the service plans, and it requires that supermajority. The City Council essentially assumed as part of its policy that requests would come forward where the debt did not meet that 10% limitation. You in 2006 reserved the authority to review those debt issues. Standard is consistency with the service plan. Although honestly, looking at the charter and making that choice that 2/3 of the entire city council wants to approve this because you feel that if you do feel those protections are in place, that is your discretion and your choice. With respect to public improvement fees, because that came up in the discussion on the 24th, as we discussed then, they're imposed separately by covenant. Most of them, but not all of them, mimic a sales tax. The model plan that you all approved in 2006, and is the plan in place for this district, which was approved in 2008, allows fees, rates, tolls, charges, and other legal sources of revenue. And so although PIFs are not overtly addressed in your policy or in this service plan, under those provisions that if it's a legal source of revenue, it's not inconsistent with the service plan right now. City Council, you now affirmatively address PIFs and BIDs, but business improvement districts, because they come before you every year. And you will see, possibly on July 21st at a work session, a model BID plan, which we've never had, which will have that language in there that'll say, even though PIFs are privately covenanted, they basically be done separately. Anybody at Kmart shopping center somewhere in town could do a PIF tomorrow. But when that is combined with special district financing, you have the discretion as a council to potentially say, we don't want to combine those sources. And so the bid document that you will see, the standard model bid document, possibly on the 21st, has that language in there. You could address the policy, your policy, and the model service plans going forward, not for existing metropolitan districts, but for any future ones that were created, and have some more affirmative language on PIPs if you chose to do that in the future. But right now, our position as a staff is that it is consistent. It's your choice today to how you vote in this reconsideration, but it is consistent with the service plan that is in place for Copper Ridge. And with that, if you have any questions of me, if not, again, the case for this reconsideration would be made by Mr. Erickson.
I think you probably need to stay there. We'll probably have some questions, so. Councilmember Knight, do you want to, you don't, no? No questions right now? Okay. Let's start with Councilmember Knight then.
I'll wait to hear from you.
Okay. Councilmember Miller.
Yeah, is the applicant going to make a presentation?
Does the applicant
I'll
want-
wait.
Please come forward. Welcome.
Welcome, President King, members of the council. Gary Erickson, developer of Northgate. Here to answer any questions you might have.
Would you like to explain how the process was determined to go this particular route so we could have an understanding of that?
Absolutely. In May of 2010, we came to the council with our metropolitan district, which has the ability to go to 50 mills. We're at 17 mills now. The PIF is something that was put in progress in place to help us finance our Bass Pro Shop. We brought Bass Pro Shops to town, opened them in November of last year. That is a very highly incentivized company. This is the first one they've ever built without city incentives. So our ability to be able to put them in a $32 million facility, it took us some creative thinking to be able to help us fund that. So that's when we came up with the PIF. We recorded it right prior to signing a lease with the Bass Pro organization, and it's in place to, Bass Pro opened with 450 jobs. Since then, we've opened 3-4 restaurants. We're up to about 1,000 employees now, just from what we've been able to create on the north end of town. Today, we are pouring 500 yards of concrete for a brand new 30,000 square foot Magnum shooting center. CBN Pots, we're digging the hole for them. A brand new restaurant coming to town. Had a grand opening for First Choice Medical Center today. So this is all part of the plan to create the ability to bring a Bass Pro Shop. All these other things I've mentioned have been directly from the Bass Pro Shops. They count every person that comes into their facility. They have 70 stores now. They ran 120 million people through the Bass Pro Shops last year. So we're looking that we'll have close to 3 million visitors through our Bass Pro Shop this year, and this is the purpose of the Metro District and the PIF completely, is to create the ability to bring that excitement to our town.
Okay. Questions? Any questions? Councilmember Miller.
I don't have any questions per se. I raised the PIF issue because I think it is something that I'd like council to look at. I think what we're doing is we're approving people's property taxes and their sales taxes to be approved by somebody that's not a government entity. I think that when you approve a metro district, you do that. That's something we need to look at. But Mr. Erickson followed all the rules. The PIF was in place. It was already being collected. You do check a sales receipt from the area. It's already being collected like it is in 2 other areas in town. And if I'm not mistaken, so this item is to allow the PIF funds to repay debt. And the debt's going to go towards streetlights and infrastructure. Mr. Erickson told me earlier today, $1.1 million of sewer and wastewater and gas lines that would accommodate the powers cut through that normally wouldn't be required, but is being done in order to facilitate that, and $1 million toward the fire station 22, which will eventually, hopefully, allow us to come out of the requirement for the residents up there to pay a separate property tax for a separate fire station. So I don't like the idea of PIFs. I think it raises taxes without council explicitly approving it. But Mr. Erickson planned his financial plan around following all the rules, which is what he did. But I do think it's something we need to address. We need to address making things equal and fair across the board for all developers. If there's one that has to pay the brunt for an interchange, for example, this body needs to be very careful about making sure that the costs are allocated fairly. Because we do have some big players, some big hitters that tend to get some really great help in doing the things they want. But we see here with this development, it's barely built out and we have 1,000 jobs. 3 million visitors. The best case for our stadium downtown is 781,000, and that includes things like kickball tournaments that we know nothing about. This could be a hard, is it 3 million you're looking at for a year?
Yes, sir. That's the estimated.
1,000 jobs, 3 million visitors to our area who may have driven right by it. I think it's a good development. I don't like PIFs. I will be changing my vote because I think he was playing by the rules, and it's not fair to change the rules when he's already invested his own funds to make this happen.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Pico.
Yeah, I voted against this round one, but taking a look at what was in there, I think there was confusion on my part on taking a look at exactly what the money was going for in regards to what had already been approved, as noted. So, you know, this has already been approved, the PIFs is already in place. We're not actually changing that. This is merely approving the reimbursement of a lot of the public infrastructure that he's already completed. So, yes, I'll be supporting this, round two.
Councilmember Knight.
I too will be changing my vote in favor of supporting this. And Mr. Erickson, thank you very much for your patience and reaching out to us and doing the one-on-one and explaining and resolving the confusion, because I too was confused, and you made it clear. And again, sorry I had to put you through this, and appreciate your patience.
It was my honor, sir, and it was great to be able to meet you guys personally, so I appreciate your time.
I'll be keeping my vote the same, which was in favor. But I have a question. Is there a PIF and a TIF on this property, or is it just a PIF?
The TIF was put in place strictly to help build Powers Boulevard.
Okay, so there is both.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. Okay, any further questions?
Mr. King, if I may, we need a motion to reconsider and an approval of that motion by a majority of council in order to take the item up, and then we would need to approve it if that's what the council does. So you could probably combine those motions.
Okay, we'll have Councilmember Bennett redo that.
Then let me redo my motion. I move to reconsider
And approve.
and approve a resolution of the City Council of Colorado Springs approving the issuance of a subordinate taxable limited tax general obligation and public improvement fee loan 2014A by the Copper Ridge Metropolitan District.
Is that a good, are we good there?
Is that a good motion? Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
Jan, are you okay with that? Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Martin is okay. Is there anybody else who would like to testify on this issue? Any further comments from council? Let's vote. That passes on an 8-1 vote. Sure.
And I did-
Councilmember Miller.
Before Mr. Erickson leaves, I did want to, the annexation agreement, there's a requirement for a fire station to be built there. There's no timetable whatsoever. So I want to express my appreciation that Mr. Erickson's willing to accelerate the building of fire station number 22. He has no legal obligation to make that happen right now. There's nothing written down, but I do appreciate, because I believe that he's trying to do what's right. So I appreciate that, sir.